The sun hangs low over jagged cliffs, stretching long, crooked shadows across the valleys below. Dust spins in the heat, carried by a dry wind that smells faintly of smoke. Somewhere far off, villages cry out, their sounds swallowed by distance. You stand at the edge of a ravine where the air feels heavy, sharp with the metallic tang of blood and the bitter sting of burning homes. Below you, soldiers move with purpose. Their armor flashes in the fading light as they cut through the chaos like trained predators. Nearby, women dressed in once fine linens huddle together. The fabric is torn, stained, barely recognizable now. Terror is written across their faces. One by one, they're pulled forward. Their pleas vanish beneath shouted orders. Blades rise, blades fall. The rhythm is precise, almost mechanical, echoing against the stone. And as the first screams tear through the air, something becomes clear. This isn't random violence. This is deliberate, a calculated erasure, a king's desperate attempt to silence whispers of rebellion, whispers carried not by strangers, but by his own blood. Bodies collapse, the ground darkens, slick and unforgiving, as the desert drinks deeply from thousands of lives. What happens next defies belief. This story was buried beneath the sand for centuries. What you're about to hear involves systematic violence against women, drawn from the shadows of ancient power struggles. The details are disturbing, even fragmented, but they are not imagined. They exist in echoes, texts, ruins, and bones. If you need to pause, that's understandable. But if you continue, know this. We're not here to linger on gore. We're here to understand the machinery behind it, the paranoia, the politics, the desperation of a throne so fragile it turned kin into enemies. This wasn't chaos born of war. This was a purge, hidden at the fringes of an empire, far from the marble halls of Rome and the sacred stones of Jerusalem. It unfolded in the harsh wilds of Idumea, where loyalty cracked like dry earth under pressure. Herod, the self-made king, wasn't just ruling Judea. He was reshaping it, brick by bloody brick. His rise didn't come from ancient lineage or divine right. It was forged through alliances with conquerors and betrayals of his own people. And this act, targeting the daughters of Idumea's noble houses, women tied to royal lines that once rivaled his, laid bare just how fragile his crown truly was. This wasn't madness alone. It was a system. Spies lurked in every shadow. Soldiers enforced silence. Fear stretched from palace corridors to remote plateaus. And why does this still matter? Because power built on erasure leaves scars, even in the sand. It reminds us how fragile empires really are, and how voices meant to be forgotten can still reshape history. To understand this, we need to go back to the cradle of Herod's world. Idumea was a rugged land south of Judea, where red cliffs met endless dunes and survival meant bending before greater powers. This was the legacy of Esau, the biblical twin whose descendants carved out a kingdom among the harsh beauty echoed later in Petra and along the salt-crusted shores of the Dead Sea. By the time Herod entered the story, Idumea stretched from Hebron southward, forming a buffer between Judea and the Nabatean Arabs. It was rich in trade routes, but poor in unity. Tribes clashed, loyalties shifted, and foreign empires, Persian, Greek, Roman, left their marks like footprints in the dust. This was an age of flux. Alexander the Great's conquests had swept through, Hellenizing the region. Greek gods blended with local cults. Philosophy mixed uneasily with ancient laws. But Judea, under the Hasmonean kings, pushed back. In the late 2nd century BC, John Hyrcanus led campaigns south, conquering Idumean cities like Adora and Marissa. He didn't just take land, he demanded submission. The Idumeans, proud descendants of Esau, faced an impossible choice: circumcise, adopt Jewish law, or leave. Many stayed, converting under force. Altars to Kos, their storm god, were smashed and replaced with Yahweh's commandments. It was integration at the edge of a sword. Rivals turned into reluctant kin, but resentment never disappeared. Idumeans became Jews in name, yet old identities survived in whispered stories and hidden rites. And from within this tension rose Antipater, Herod's father. An Idumean noble, Antipater was sharp, ambitious, and endlessly adaptable. He navigated the Hasmonean court like a desert fox, earning favor through loyalty and strategy. Appointed governor of Idumea by Hyrcanus II, he married Cyprus, a Nabatean princess, blending Idumean grit with Arab political savvy. Their son, Herod, born around 73 BC, inherited a world already cracking at the seams. He wasn't raised in comfort. He grew up amid political storms, Roman legions marching in, Parthian forces threatening from the east. As a boy, he watched his father align with Julius Caesar after Pompey's conquest of Jerusalem in 63 BC. Caesar rewarded Antipater with Roman citizenship and tax privileges, elevating the family from outsiders to power brokers. But power leaves scars. Herod's formative years were shaped by betrayal and bloodshed. When Hyrcanus II clashed with his brother Aristobulus II, Antipater backed Hyrcanus and dragged young Herod into the conflict. By the age of 15, Herod governed Galilee. He crushed bandit groups with ruthless efficiency, ordering executions without trial. Rome approved. Judea recoiled. The Sanhedrin summoned him to answer for his actions. Herod arrived in purple robes, escorted by soldiers. It was a calculated display. He was spared judgment through Roman intervention, and the lesson stuck. Strength mattered more than law. Then everything shifted. In 40 BC, Parthian forces invaded Judea, installing Antigonus, a Hasmonean, as king. Antipater was poisoned. Herod's brother Phasael was captured and killed. Herod fled south, rescuing his family at Masada, the sheer cliff fortress he would later transform into an icon of his rule. From there, he raced to Rome. Through charm and political instinct, Herod won over Mark Antony and Octavian. The Senate named him King of the Jews, but a title meant nothing without conquest. 3 brutal years of war followed, ending with the siege of Jerusalem. Herod took the city by force. Antigonus was executed. The throne was his. Yet victory tasted bitter. To many Judeans, Herod was still an Idumean usurper, only partially Jewish, never fully legitimate. To strengthen his claim, he married Mariamne, a Hasmonean princess, tying his line to ancient royal blood. But paranoia followed close behind. Whispers of plots echoed through his court. Memories of his father's assassination festered. Slowly, the ambitious climber became a haunted ruler. Mariamne's family, once his bridge to legitimacy, became in his mind a nest of conspirators. Her grandfather, Hyrcanus II, was executed. Her brother-in-law drowned under suspicious circumstances. These weren't isolated acts. They sprang from Herod's deepest fear, that his Idumean roots would be used to destroy him. And Idumea itself remained a problem. Noble houses there still carried claims to autonomy. Their daughters married into lines that could challenge Herod's hybrid dynasty. They represented continuity, bloodlines unbroken by conquest. Then, in the shadows of 29 BC, the whispers grew louder. and the purge began. The rumors didn't begin in the palace. They started in the markets of Marissa, Idumea's beating heart. Merchants spoke in lowered voices. Nobles exchanged glances that lingered just a moment too long. Descendants of old Edomite kings, families who remembered a time before forced conversion, chafed under Herod's rule. And their daughters, educated, wealthy, and bound by blood to ancient lines, became living symbols of everything Herod feared. They were potential brides, political currency, wombs that could birth rivals. Herod's informants reported secret gatherings, conversations masked as weddings or funerals, coded messages hinting at alliances, perhaps with Nabatea, perhaps even with enemies of Rome. The reports piled up. Whether every word was true hardly mattered anymore. Suspicion had become its own reality. One name, preserved here as a composite, rises from the shadows: Livia. She represents many women whose real names history never fully recorded. A high-born Idumean woman, daughter of a converted chieftain. Refined, intelligent, fiercely loyal to her heritage beneath a surface of calm obedience. When Herod summoned her to Jerusalem, it was under the pretense of betrothal negotiations, a gesture meant to signal unity. Livia arrived with her entourage, passing through gates of dressed stone into Herod's palace. The halls were lined with frescoes of Greek gods, muscular, violent, clashing in eternal struggle, set uneasily against the austere traditions of Jewish law. Her robes were embroidered with subtle Idumean patterns. She did not bow her head as deeply as others. Herod questioned her at length. He asked about her family, her loyalties, her hopes for the future. Livia spoke carefully, choosing words that suggested unity without surrender. But beneath her calm answers, there was an edge, a reminder that forced conversions did not erase memory. That night, Herod did not sleep. He dreamed of crowds rising against him, of banners bearing old Idumean symbols, of his throne collapsing into dust beneath his feet. He woke drenched in sweat, heart racing. In his mind, the threat became clear. These women were not passive figures. They were vessels of rebellion. Their marriages could bind coalitions. Their children could inherit claims stronger than his own. By dawn, his resolve hardened. Orders were sent quietly. Thracian mercenaries, foreign soldiers loyal only to coin, were dispatched to Idumea's noble quarters. Their instructions were simple: root out the threat, eliminate it completely.